Welcome into the Brewhouse Cafe South Downtown, MLS All Star tonight, and we wanted to take the opportunity here on the SDH network to not quite do an SDH PM, but just to talk about where the league is right now as you're going into the second half of the season, literally now, not figuratively like we did after the World Cup break, but you're also going into what I think the league and what a lot of reporters are calling MLS 3.0. I thought we were already on 4.0 and this would be 5.0, but I've lost track of what version we're on at this point. We're kind of taking stock of where things stand right now with MLS. I'm Jason Longshore, Jon Nelson here as well. We're going to be watching the All Star Game against Liga MX shortly. And we'll just start there. I love this All-Star format. I think it's the best All-Star format in all of sports. I think it's unique in the soccer world, and it's a great celebration of the game to kind of cap off a great celebration for the game this summer.
Then let me ask you this. When it comes to All-Star games, it's usually you playing your own.
Right.
So if you play your own here, it's allowing more players from Major League Soccer to be a part of an All-Star game format, but
sure.
But at the same time, you're not showcasing the rest of the hemisphere. You're not showcasing the rest of what's going on.
It's not about that for me. It's like an All-Star game where you're playing your own, I don't think has any stakes to it.
No, it doesn't.
We saw it with the WNBA, and we've seen it with the NBA All-Star game over the years, where it used to have stakes because the East and the West did not like each other, and you didn't really move a lot.
Right.
Now you move all the time, so it doesn't really. You're not an Eastern Conference guy or a Western Conference guy. You're just a guy. So we've seen it with baseball, trying to add stakes to it. I mean, with the Pro Bowl, it doesn't make sense to even have an All-Star game at that. You don't need another day of hitting each other.
No.
It's just not needed. So this, where it's an All-Star game, but there's real competition between two leagues, that it's not that they don't like each other, it's just that they're competitive. And you don't see as much movement from side to side. I think this format works really well to get a fun game that isn't, it's kind of like an international friendly, but it means more than a typical All-Star game where you just don't have any defending.
And that, to me, is why I like this one the way that it's laid out.
Yeah.
Because you see where you stand.
Yep.
And for a league that is trying to establish itself higher than a top 10 rating, and the conversation, subtle plug, in its chopped up form and staccato language from this morning when I caught up with Marc Spiegel, the part of the ownership group of Querétaro, their aim in Liga MX is to have that league be a top 5.
Yeah.
And that's what they're chasing after right now.
It's funny that he's comfortable saying that, whereas if you mention that for MLS, people start yelling at you, which is dumb, because that should be the goal. Do you get there? I don't know. I think Ligue 1 is absolutely gettable in terms of getting to that level.
Especially with the financials.
Yeah, I mean, outside of PSG, I don't think you're far off now.
No.
But the others are, further ahead of you. But that should be your goal. MLS should feel comfortable saying that, and media should not poo-poo it anytime that comes up.
And for MLS right now, depending on who you talk to and what day of the week it is, they're pretty much anywhere from 10 to 12.
Well, I think Liga MX is too. I think they're very similar. But for Marc Spiegel to say this is where we want to go, yes, MLS should say the exact same thing. And I think when they do, they get mocked for it, and that should not be happening. I think we have to stop whatever this is when we get into this conversation, whether we're talking U.S. men's national team or MLS, about what it can be. There needs to be ambition.
And that's, to me, the larger point in all of this. It's like, why would you want to downplay your own success? Yeah. No, we don't deserve that. We don't need to be there. We don't, whatever the rationale is.
I don't think it's I think it's people think it's impossible.
See, and that's just short-sighted.
I think it is.
That's profoundly short-sighted. Why would you not want to be the best version of yourself?
Yeah.
And that, to me, means that, okay, so let's work top down. Premier League, Bundesliga?
2 through 4 rotates on the year. I would not put Bundesliga second. I would put La Liga because I think the top 3 elevate it past anybody else.
Right.
Probably Bayern carries Bundesliga to 3, although there's not a whole lot else past that.
No.
Italy has more competition, but not the top of the others. So
Okay.
I would probably go Serie A 3 and Bundesliga 4.
Okay.
You could flip it. I think La Liga is 2nd right now, and Ligue 1's 5th.
Okay. And so then 6 would be
6 to
gettable.
6 to 12 is arguable between, in this hemisphere, MLS, Mexico, Brazil. In Europe, you're talking Portugal, you're talking Belgium, you're talking Turkey, you're talking the Netherlands. I don't think you're talking anything in Scandinavia. I don't think you're talking anybody in Eastern Europe. I would not put Greece in that conversation. I wouldn't put Switzerland in that conversation. I think that's it. I don't think there's an African league that is in the conversation. I don't think there's an Asian league that's in the conversation either. The J League is further back. The K League is a little bit further back than that.
And that's why I was wondering, what you were looking at, because to me, 6 is gettable.
You could be 6 right now on your day. That's the thing, is like, however you want to quantify it. I think personally that Brazil is further ahead of anybody in this hemisphere. Not by a lot, but I think they are. I think Mexico, because they win competitive games against MLS, they're ahead of MLS right now. I think in terms of business, now that conversation can change. In terms of the financials, I think MLS is much further ahead than they want to give them credit for.
The math is there. When I was catching up with Mark, when I was doing the backgrounder on it, Liga MX right now, Liga MX right now, they are 5 times earnings.
Yeah.
And Major League Soccer is at 8.5.
Yeah.
And so
in valuation.
Yeah. So
and MLS, well, Mexico's starting to model MLS in a lot of ways with promotion relegation, which is a conversation in Mexico, and it's complicated because it's a different culture, but also there are not second division teams, maybe with 1 or 2 exceptions, that could move up into the first division right now, that have the means to do it and stay. What did we see before they suspended promotion relegation? We saw teams get relegated and teams get promoted, and owners buying the franchise rights of the team that got promoted and staying up. And that happened a lot. So, like, we have the promotion relegation conversation. I know it's always a sticky subject for a lot of people because they love it or they think it's something that it's not necessarily. I know a lot of people think that financials are tied to promotion relegation in terms of teams getting relegated and getting a parachute payment. No, that's England because they have the money to do it and they do it. They carved it out. Nobody else does that. Like, that's not part of the structure. That is something that England does because they have the money to work with. So I think for MLS and Mexico is looking to MLS on the business side and saying, we want to be that. MLS is looking to Mexico on the sporting side and saying, we want to beat you, we want to be that. And I would put, from a competitive standpoint, I would put Mexico slightly higher than MLS. I think that could change in the next 12 months. I think it's very close. And Brazil, it's a little harder to judge, but you look at how they've dominated Copa Libertadores, I think you have to have them as the top. And I don't think there's another league in South America overall that is as competitive. Again, Boca, River, yes, sure, we're having that conversation. And then to a lesser extent, Lanús and Racing maybe. Colombia, maybe a couple that are in this conversation. Ecuador, maybe 1 or 2, but I don't think they're better than your top MLS teams right now. And then when you start to go across the Atlantic and compare, it's hard because Portugal's a very top-heavy league, but they have multiple at the top. Same with Belgium, same with the Netherlands. I think they're both top-heavy. I don't think it's an automatic that an Anderlecht or a Club Brugge or, even a Benfica. I don't think it's a automatic that they would come and win MLS.
When Spiegel and Innovation bought Querétaro, because they're trying to get away from the early MLS model of multiple clubs owned by a single entity.
Yeah,
right?
they're almost out of that.
Yeah, there were 4 groups that owned multiple franchises, and they're trying to get away from that. Querétaro was purchased for $125 million.
Yep.
And we look at that, with the valuations that you have for Major League Soccer franchises. And I think that it's interesting where, from the business side, you mentioned it. Literally, I think this is it. From the competitive side, Liga MX is where it is.
Slightly ahead.
Yeah, so slightly ahead. And then from a business perspective, you're looking at all these valuations for all the Major League Soccer franchises and the TV contracts and everything. It is far and away.
A good bit ahead. I mean, Querétaro would be comparable business-wise to Vancouver.
Yeah.
And Vancouver is valued at just under $500 million, and Querétaro went for less than 150.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that tells you where it is. Now, I think there was still a, air quotes, threat of relegation when Querétaro was bought, and it was an interesting situation when Spiegel came in and bought it. I think it was a distressed property in a lot of different ways. So maybe he got a discount on that. But, yeah, it's cheaper to get in the door there.
And it was interesting. I said, as the first U.S. owners in Liga MX, how are you received? Because I'm sure that there is a certain nationalistic attachment to it. It's like, you're an outsider or whatever. And he said, look, we come to the table with a lot of ideas. And sometimes they'll look at us a little funny. I'm paraphrasing. Sometimes they'll look at us a little funny. But they're appreciative that we come to the table with ideas about going to the next level when it comes to how we want to do things. And I thought it was a really interesting conversation. And I told him that we do want to circle back with him so we can learn more about everything. And I'd love to be able to find him to where we could do a sit-down interview with him that we can post on the network, just to kind of like a newsmakers kind of a thing.
Well, it's definitely something that we'll have to do here at the Brewhouse Cafe South Downtown, because Humberto Bermudez, the owner, has, I think, a lot of personal links to Querétaro. And he has not met Marc Spiegel yet. So that would be one to make happen.
Nice.
And 2, to maybe have a conversation here with the 4 of us about it and record that. That could be a fun conversation. So that is something to check out. That's on the network. That is out as an individual podcast. It was in today's SDH AM. In Morning Espresso today, I had a bit and had some of my thoughts about the reports from The Athletic and other places about potential MLS rule changes. It sounds like this was a heavy topic at the Board of Governors. This was a heavy topic in the sporting committee conversations around All Star. Maybe Chris Henderson will give us an update this weekend when we're in Philadelphia. I think it's an interesting time for MLS because of that bigger picture conversation. MLS wants to be in the top 5, even if people shun them for saying it, and trying to figure out what those next steps are. I do think it's time to clean up the roster rules, clean up the salary cap, because you're spending a lot more than the salary cap says you're spending, which isn't good publicity. You need to say what you're spending, because people then say, oh, they're spending a whole lot more than this. The salary cap's not $6 million. It should be more like 30.
Yeah.
Because that's where teams are in total spending. Now, I personally would like to see the floor and the ceiling be a little bit higher than what's been reported. I would love to see 20 million on the floor and 40 million on the ceiling. Right now they're saying 15 and 30. That's fine. If you, wherever it goes, it's going to go up.
Yeah.
It's going to scale up. And yes, you're going to have a conversation with the Players Association and the CBA. And I don't think that'll be a difficult one, because I think more people will have an opportunity to make more money if you get rid of some of the buckets in roster designations. So the other thing, too, that I think is part of this is, okay, you'd still have designated players and potentially would still have young designated player and U22 initiative and those sorts of things.
Right.
So even if it's 30 and you have to spend at least 15 and you can spend up to 30, but then you have whatever the number is of guys that could be off book, basically. And I would, if it's 15 to 30, if it's 15 mil floor, 30 mil ceiling, I would want to see 4 or 5 designated player spots.
Yeah.
Expand that. So if you want to spend, you can be aggressive. I think it's a win-win for everybody, just because the NBA roster rules are more complicated, but they're absolutely every inch of it public. So if you have the right AI platform, or you can be a lawyer and go through it and decipher all of it. You can actually break down what teams can do and can't do. Right now, we have this conversation all the time. We can't. We don't know how much room you have under the cap. We don't know how much allocation money you have to work with. That's become more public, but we don't know how every transaction goes in terms of, well, it pulled $500,000 from GAM, and then it pulled this from TAM. Like, we don't know. So if you can make it simpler, we can have more conversations about it. Everybody can win. But I think teams can then choose a little bit more of how they want to build their roster. Do they want it to be, if you're going to spend $30 million on 30 guys, do you want it to be $1 million a piece? Do you want it to be more in tiers, like a low tier, middle tier, high tier? You can figure that out, and I think you can build rosters more effectively going into a transfer window next year. That will be the first one in the summer and be a huge opportunity.
And I think that's what you're looking for as your deadline, to have all of this information available to you. Should be that first 27 schedule after the spring.
I'd go even further. Like, honestly, if you've got everybody at the table on board, get the Players Association in the room, get it done, and start it in the January window. So ahead of the sprint season, or have it ratified ahead of that so it's coming in the summer window.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into the summer window with any confusion next year. Yeah. I want it to be nailed down at what you're going to do.
And for me, I think that ceiling should be higher than 30.
I'd like to see it start higher.
Because a range, and you're dealing with roster sizes that are larger than your average baseball first team, because you have a 25-man, you got a 40, but your 25-man roster in baseball is what you have on a daily basis on your level of competition. You got a 30 or 31, depending on slots available to you right now with Major League Soccer. So just the sheer numbers that are engaged, I want that margin to be a little higher on the top side, because you have more players that you've got to figure out.
Now, the argument could be that, all right, if you make 5 guys available to be off book, then your cap is for 25. And if that's the case, okay. Like, if that's the give and take, if it's all right, it's 15 and 30, but we're going to increase the designated player idea to 5 rather than 3, I can live with that. I just want there to be the flexibility to build teams how you want, but also the ambition to let teams spend more if they want and they can.
And you know that there are going to be teams that want to do things through their academy.
Yeah, they should.
Philadelphia. And they're not going to want to blow up to that 40. They're going to want to build from within, which is perfectly
Hey, here's the other thing I'll tell you is one thing I would like to see them figure out a way to do is incentivize that.
Yeah.
And teams that want to go down that road, because right now, if you develop guys and sell guys, you get more GAM out of the sale that you can add into your cap, and then you can spend more. All right, figure out how to mechanize that. And if you sell homegrowns or young players that you sign, like how U22 is structured a little bit, but also the homegrown sale side of the roster.
Like if you hang on to them, either a homegrown or somebody that you bring in as an 18-year-old outside of your system, to the point where they turn into a U22, everything up to that age, you can get incentivized if you move them on.
Yeah, you start to get into like the elements of the NBA cap of stretching.
Where's my Larry Bird exception?
Basically, yeah, you're getting into those kinds of things, which fine, because that incentivizes things that you should want to incentivize. Because Philadelphia is not going to go out and spend and sign Antoine Griezmann. They can't spend it, and he's not going to go there. And other clubs are going to be in that same situation, so they can still be competitive. And I think the ultimate thing for MLS that gets lost in the shuffle sometimes is it's okay to have some teams go out and have more talent.
Yeah.
I think the leagues that we talked about and the reasons why they might be better than MLS right now is you have super teams. You have in La Liga, you have Real Madrid, you have Barcelona, you have Atleti. Then you have a next tier, but you have that top tier. Germany, you have Bayern, who's the only top tier, and then you have another tier below it. But those tiers are okay. The equalizer in MLS is the playoff.
Yeah.
Because you can have a tier all you want, but then you still got to knock somebody out in a playoff, and we saw it here in 2024. So I think if I'm MLS, that's my argument to anybody who is like, well, we want parity, parity, parity. You have it. The playoff structure. That's your parity. The structure of building teams, which is going to bring in more money, which is going to bring eyeballs, which is going to get more people watching, you need stars. But parity is already there because of your playoff structure.
And when you think about how this could evolve, when the NBA gets into their trade windows, what do all of the rights holder networks have? They have the trade activators.
Yeah.
You can sit there and play general manager and figure out, okay, well, if I trade so-and-so and so-and-so, does this trade work? You get the trade machine because you know what the salaries are and you know what can work and what can help out your club. I think, and that gets people, I'd love to know what the social media numbers are for those kinds of things, especially around deadlines and things
I know
like that.
you watch the transfer deadline day in England. Like, could you imagine having that here where it really means something because you're spending bigger money on these kinds of players and competing with England and France and Spain and Germany and Italy?
I'd love to have that show on the network, actually.
Well, we'd probably have our own, but anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, on ours. But what brings people to the table? What brings the casual to the table? Knowing the information that's in front of you, not having any secrets, not sitting there and going, well, not getting the conspiracy theories, even, it's like, well, they've got to be doing this under the table or this or whatever. If you put all the financials out there, then all of that stuff is wiped away. Mm-hmm. And you can engage the casual, you can engage the hardcore, you can have the trade activators in Major League Soccer, you can bring in figures like, okay, my team's got X amount of cap space, what can we do?
Yeah.
And then when your window is aligned with the rest of the planet, you can have this kind of conversation, and you're bringing in those new fans, and you're keeping them because everything is transparent when it comes to the information.
And you're generating excitement through these things. It's transparent, it's understandable, but you're generating excitement, and I think this structure would maybe clarify it for some teams to go out and spend more and be able to. And if you have more guys that you can spend more on, that's a good thing for the leagues. I think now it's time. If I'm MLS and I'm in the office and I go through the conversation we just did of 4 top leagues, 1 that is 5th kind of by default right now, 3 top leagues in this hemisphere, and then another 3 to 5 in Europe. Okay, I should look at that and say in 10 years, I want to be 5th. And I want to be knocking on the door probably right now of Italy because of the financials. I want to be knocking on that door. How do we get there? And I think it's storytelling, it's creating excitement, and it's superstars. And when you have superstars, I think then you start to have super teams. And the nature of this country and the size of it, you're going to have people who are hardcore Philadelphia and Minnesota and Portland fans that don't really need a super team and maybe the ownership groups aren't capable of having that super team. They have to develop it from within, and it's a different kind of super team. But other cities can go out and bring the world's biggest stars here. I think at increasingly younger ages. And that's going to get more eyeballs, more dollars, more excitement, and more people in the building. So we'll see. We should get some news out of all this, I would imagine, maybe as soon as tonight, probably over the next couple of days, as we start to hear where the conversations went. We'll be talking about it. Morning Espresso, every morning. It is free to read. It is free to subscribe. It is free all the time, and that's never going to change. You can get to that from soccerdownhere.net and also our page on Beehive. SDH AM, it's always free for you every morning starting at 9:05 on YouTube, on Twitch. The podcast goes out later. The website, soccerdownhere.net. All kinds of stories all the time. We're trying to add new contributors, new conversations, And look, we talk about this sort of stuff. We talk about high school. We talk about college in the state of Georgia. We talk about the women's game and how that's growing here in the Atlanta area with NWSL coming. We talk about the international game and everything in between. But coming up next, it's the MLS All Star Game against Liga MX. We'll be watching it here at the Brewhouse South Downtown, and we have a lot of things to come here at this Brewhouse Cafe location and at the OG in Little 5 Points. So all the things, all the stuff, it's a big fall ahead for the SDH network. Thanks for listening.